In this video, I'm talking about knit on edges, which is one of my favourite knitting techniques. They may sound complicated, and the initial instructions you might think, what is going on here? But really, they're actually very simple and do exactly what they say on the tin. In the video, we're going to be looking at the edging for my free Off Kilter Shawl, which you'll find in my pattern stores. And it is knitted all the way up to a long, I think it's about 150 stitches at the end. It's an asymmetric shawl. And then you knit on this edging. So you don't cast off and you start working on your edging. And if you look here, you will see that here we have the last rows of the main body of the shawl, and they're knitted back and forth this way. But the edging is knitted back and forth at 90 degrees to that. So you add a few stitches when you start the edging, and then you start working back and forth doing your edging and joining it very simply to the live stitches from the body of your shawl by working 2 stitches together every other row. And if we look here, we can see this line or ridge of stitches where we have the rows going one way and then the rows going the other way, and they're joined by this line of stitches. If you look all the way along here, you'll see that. And so you get this lovely effect that you get a nice pointy edge rather than a plain straight cast off. If you've done an I-cord cast off before, the principle of this is not very different, to be honest. And I'm going to pick up a live version now so we can have a look at how it works in practice. So now I've got a live version of the Off Kilter Shawl where I have started working on my edging. You'll see I've done a few repeats in. And if we look here, going along my needle, I've got all my stitches here. And these ones are the live stitches that were at the end of the main body of the shawl. And then the ones on this bit are the new edging stitches that I'm working from. You can start to see, hopefully, that we've got our ridge of decreases worked 2 together stitches along there. So I'm just going to knit a couple of rows of the edging to give you an idea of how it works and how effectively the edging zips onto the main part of the shawl. And let's grab my other needle, pull everything round a bit. Got a nice big long circular on this so that I can manage everything easily. Okay, so we are ready to go. So I'm not going to talk you through the pattern. It's something that's in the pattern for this, but the same principles apply for all the knit on edges. So rather than talk about a specific one, I just want to give you an idea of the technique. So I'm just going to work across my row. And I've got to the last stitch of my edging. And you can see, if you look below, you can see where you've got the ridge of the worked 2 togethers. You can see 2 loops there where 2 stitches have been worked together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this as an SSK. So I'm slipping my edging stitch, slipping that knitwise, then I am slipping the first stitch of the body stitches of the shawl. And then I'm going to work those 2 together through the back of the loop to join them. And I've just moved my edging along 1 stitch of the body shawl. I've effectively zipped another bit together. Then I'm going to turn it round. It's quite a lot of shawl to turn around behind here. And I'm going to work back my pattern across again. And on a knit on edge, you'll always start with it on the rows that go away from the edging. You're going to slip your first stitch, and then you'll work your pattern, whatever it says in your pattern, to the end. And the slip stitch is very important because that just tightens everything up as you work your joins. So I'll show you again how the knit-on works. And it will be the same for any knit-on edging. You'll work to where the live stitches from the other part of your project are, and you will work two together to join them, and then you'll turn around, slip a stitch and work back. So here we go. And I'm starting my edging. It's just a knit row this time, so it's quite an easy one to demonstrate on. And again, I have reached that last stitch of my edging. So I'm slipping it knitwise, slipping the stitch from the body of the shawl knitwise, and working the two together in my SSK. It might be that your pattern is a P2 together, or a knit two together, or some other fancy decrease. Occasionally, where you're working around corners, you might work 3 stitches together at this point, but there will always be a decrease where you join them. And then when you turn around, you will have your slipped stitch at the beginning of your edging. There we go. And then you'll work to the end. And that is the basic principle of a knit-on edge. And I'm just going to do it once more, just to remind you. So I've got a pattern row again this time. So I'll be doing yarn overs and working two togethers and such like as I go across, until, again, I get to my last edging stitch, which is very obvious. It always sits slightly apart. And you slip that knitwise, slipping my edge stitch, or rather my shawl body stitch, working the two together in my SSK, so that again I've joined the edging to another row of my main shawl, and then I'm turning, I'm slipping my first edge stitch, and off I go again. And so you see that a knit-on edging is a lot less complicated than it sounds.